Yeah. So, welcome. Letzte Woche haben wir uns mal gewöhnt, die Ölm zu fuhren Kameran. Das ist der Fall keiner nicht gefahren, hat sich gesagt aus. Aber also ist es der Seider. Man ist ein bisschen gejumpt auf 6 Steps. Ich glaube allemal, dass jeder eine versteht alle Steps inzwischen, aber nicht allemal ist richtig. So, ich will nicht, ich kann nicht explainen oder aufbauen alle Steps von der Ikre-Sache, was der Ölm hat nicht verstanden, which is about knowledge. Ich kann das nicht Hand, darum können wir das sehen, aber ich kann nicht Hand. Aber ich habe getracht, sie geben 2 Nekiddes nur wegen dem. A bisschen nicht sie maß besahen, but mehr öfter sie geben instructions, or maybe so we could at least know what we're talking about when sie reden wegen ecstasy, ekstase. Also was man rief in chassidisches Forum, es passt Sagashmias, Aliyas Neshomer, things like that. Yes. Und was ich auch getan habe, als Verstehen, ist das so eine Sache, aber der Ölm hat gemeint, dass ich recht stisse. Nicht, dass ich recht stisse, aber ich suche Sachen, ich weiß, man knackt Sachen und suche alle Steps in der Mitte, so man hat eine leckere Geleite. Und auch dann will ich lernen ein bisschen anbauen, lecker. Das ist noch ein bisschen. So, was ich gewollt describen, ich weiß nicht, ob ich jetzt keinen describen, aber ich meine, es ist eine sehr basic experience. Darf können es tryen, ich meine, es ist gering ist zu tryen relatively. Es ist schwer zu reden wegen Sachen, was eine sehr happen inside of a person in a certain sense. Ich kann mich wohl sagen, dass es happen nicht inside, aber es macht sich geringer zu reden wegen. Nur Menschen, was tun gewisse Sachen, was eine gewähnt hat, es gering zu identifieren. Mit Stumm rede ich wegen dem, meine ich das. Aber ich meine, ich kann describe auf Öfen, was at least shows you that there's something like that going on. So, ich habe zwei Digmus, 2 States, 2 Examples. Wie soll ich mein, ich rede wegen? Der erste ist von nehmen Trips, fuhren auf den Berg. Und der zweite ist von Lernen. Trips. Nicht der Trip. Auch nicht. Aber können von einer Sache. So, ich weiß nicht. Du hast auch meine Erscheinung. Es tut mir, dass Menschen haben es schon geschehen zu sein, aber es ist schwer zu wissen sicher. So, du hast Menschen reden wegen gegangen auf so beautiful Platz, kickt auf der hohe Berg. And so mal vielleicht eine Language, mal raus von des Palace. Ja? Geht einmal an, sagt das so.
Ausdruck.
Es ist ein Ausdruck. Aber es sind Menschen, ob die Geister in einer gewissen Platz, oder ob die kickst auf eine ich weiß nicht, eine beautiful Sache. Du andere, beauty is nur ein Weg, aber beauty is the easy way to talk about. If you look at something very beautiful or very interesting, you'll notice that if you do it calmly and for like more than 5 seconds, you'll notice that at some point there's a field, also wie the beauty von der große Berg, ist nicht etwas, was du weißt wegen, das gehört wegen. Nicht, dass ich kiek auf einen größeren Berg oder auf eine scheine Scenery, auf eine scheine Wasser, scheine Berg. There seems to be a switch, and that's what we call, it's wegen appreciation von Art. Ja, jeder nicht geht von der Sache. Hey, appreciate the Scheinkeit, appreciate this. This moment of appreciation, or moment of being impressed by something, if you look at it, and if you'll do it, you'll realize that it's a moment of, in some way, and du hast auch Menschen, andere traditions, andere Menschen, some different ways of talking about this and calling this names. But before calling it names, we should know what we're talking about. It seems like that thing that you're looking at, that you became that. Or that it became you. Und ich bin geweiss nach, was ich rede. So, ich kann nicht gierig so mehr teures wegen dem. So,
it became me.
Listen.
What does that mean?
Was meint, ist auch philosophische Schale. Ich habe mich geredet wegen the experience. How it feels, or how it seems.
But how can I experience as Jens wird mir?
Ich kann dir sagen, wie soll es experiencen. Geh zu deinem Fenster morgen in der Früh. If you don't have a window, find one. Go pay $35 for the One World Trade Center Observatory, or $28 for the Empire State Building, or $26 for the Rockefeller Center, whatever. And stell dich auf dort und vertugst, wenn der Sinn kommt darauf. And just stare at it for 25 minutes. That's a lot. For 30 minutes. Und am Phone. Oder für die Mitte am Phone. And you'll notice something happening. Pudike Menesse. Wieso weiß ich, Menschen zahlen actually die $30 jeden Tag zu gehen. So yes, if you do the first time you're finding out information, jetzt weiß ich, wie es sieht aus, New York City von der Haich. But that's boring. If you do it a second time, and you should do it a second time, if it's worth anything, then you'll have that happen to you. Darf nicht zum $30, man kennt das Team da, bei Weg der Müller vielleicht das Team mit Apple Seeds. Aber nicht jeder eine kennt die Madreige. But it's actually a very simple thing. That's the only instruction that I have to give for this.
Bist du getraut?
Sag mal.
Was meint an der andere Sache wird
Ich kann nicht sagen, was meint. Jetzt haben wir gerade was geschieht. Was meint, ist Philosophie, ist Theory. So das, was ist. Was ist.
Ja, das heißt rappen.
You don't separate yourself from the scene.
The best way to describe it, and people, I mean, the poets and philosophers and mystics, they're all looking for ways to describe these kind of things all the time, and some people live in it all the time, some people only 5 seconds a year, and so on. But in the most basic sense, ich gehe mein ganzer Tag mit etwas, das heißt Sort Model, das ist Sort Model von mich. Also du mich, und sie geht rein in mich information, es kommt raus für mich information, also, and so on. And it's obvious to everyone that watching a beautiful scenery is not an act of having information coming into my head from the outside. Nobody does it for that. Also ich kann nicht sagen, kein größer Mekibel, das zu verstehen, ja?
No.
Keiner geht nicht dort, zu der Spitzbildung dort, da auszugehen von der Wiese sieht aus, von der Haich. Ich meine, not very interesting. You can look at a picture and have the same thing. And have the same information.
It's an experience.
Exactly. And the experience, if you just basically think of the most basic way to describe it, not tiefe Teures, the most basic way to describe it is somehow you forget yourself in it. Du musst dich vergessen in eine interessante Masse, in eine interessante Book, in a movie. Or
Is that why you could faint?
well, you faint because it's too high and you lose your balance.
No,
No, you could definitely have physical effects from it. Not a.
I fainted once at a beautiful sight. I fainted.
Of course.
ben
I'm
heuer?
very tired.
Ik ben heuer?
No, it overwhelms. Overwhelms you.
Whatever, can
It can overwhelm you.
When you slow my neck, when I train, to the Basel show, the jewelry show. He said there were 500 supermodels with long gowns directing you. And
Oh,
saying,
okay, there you go.
no. I was gonna
Was maakt dat dan?
Frank knew like no, but they all treat you like you think you're like wherever you go, people are
A beautiful woman
do
macht
you
noch
want
was
water?
Maße
Do you want
Bereiches.
water? Do you want a drink? And then Frank Mueller had a building like 3 floors high, made of black marble, and had one window. And that one window there was a single bridge, Frank Mueller, a gold watch that had a diamond, and the pressure made the diamond flow around. So there was like you saw the single movement on a single bridge. And I was very tired. I'm looking at it, and there was like just one light shining on it, and the diamond just flowing around. Big black model. That's it.
In Azem.
And I'm making tired of that. And boom, I just fell on the floor. And okay. No, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of the name that it's just because I forgot myself.
Das ist schon eine gescheine Maße. Ich rede von sehr simple situations.
Let me say, I forgot to stand.
The most simple explanation, the basic concept, the basic act, the basic move of being impressed by something is always of something. It's not of you standing here and getting some information. It's of somehow becoming dissolved into that, or that becoming part of you. Which direction you want to say it, ich weiß nicht.
Vergessen von sich.
Yeah, you could say it from whichever direction you want. Hat vergessen von sich, oder ist geworden part von Jens, oder Jens ist geworden part von ihm. This is like questions of theories, which maybe sometimes like this, sometimes like that. But the basic feeling, the basic zach was mentioned, the reason why people go to look at beautiful things and so on is for that. That's what it is.
Feeling.
And if you want to look for the most basic way of describing it, we could call it leaving your body. Body might be a complicated word already because body includes a lot of things. But again, if you make that mean the most simple thing you can make it mean, nicht gift, man geht heran, man geht heraus, ich weiß nicht. Leaving yourself. The body is a more simple way of saying it. That is the most simple way of describing this, and it's actually extremely normal things. Und ich kann rebische Maßes, was keinem noch gewähnt hat. Jeder eine, was geht kicken auf a beautiful Platz, and macht is exactly that. You could intensify it. Some people by nature have it more intensely. You could practice to intensify it. You could, like you said, you get physically tired from it. I don't know from what, from whichever. There's different theories for why, but you do. There's different other physical effects that could happen, but this is not the point. This is not was ich tut sie maßbar sein. But another sign, like this is one sign, like I said, you bump out of yourself. Another sign is sometimes you walk out of that. If you go, and you have to have, if you're distracted, interessant. Go to the Museum of Modern Art, or go to the Metropolitan Museum, or one of their rooms where there's some guy sets up lights and music and and sit there for 20 minutes. And you'll walk out, you'll realize that you forgot where you came from. You forgot where you were, not welche Direction man ist reingegangen von der Zimmer. Wie ich bin gewesen. It feels like you came from somewhere that's not yourself. It literally feels like that. People that know how to make this effect, right? Von dem sind artists, they can this machen. But that's your basic feeling of coming out of that room, or look at it, or watch the sunset, whatever it is. I mean, going to sleep and dreaming is like this very often, right? Where do you come from? Ergens. Wer ist gewähnt dort? Well, mich, but nicht mich. The body, right? Nicht mich. Das ist mich, was du a ganze Tag. Some other kind of, don't know what, but something. Anyway, this is very basic stuff. And you should do it. And then, what I'm trying to get out of this is that when we say ecstasy, or we say out, this mind literally out of your body or out of yourself, this is literally what everyone is doing all the time. This is talking about beauty, usually, or sometimes something very scary, we say. Scary is not a good word. Or awesome, or something very attractive. These are basically the kind of things that are that people watch and these kind of things. Stimmt.
I tried it. I'll
Do
try
we
it.
seek this? We seek it.
Should you seek it? Do you seek it? Ich weiß nicht. It's a fact. This is what it is.
It's there all the time of these.
I think that it's a human need.
I have joy and pleasure from like all, but not leaving the body. I don't know.
It's just the focus, not this.
It's a human need. One of
Dat dan 30 minutes.
I just leave,
I
leaving
ski
the body
all the
down.
time. Like I lose myself in the mountain. But that's what you mean,
Maybe.
Yeah? Ich meine nicht gut nicht, was das ist nicht geschehen. People, we always have this problem when we talk about,
It's called flow.
nein, ich
Yeah,
rede
you
nicht
go
wegen
with the
Flow.
flow.
Nein,
Like,
gerade rede ich wegen Jan. Ich denke, das ist ein bisschen anders. Ich kann es ähnlich, ich weiß nicht. Al Capone, ich rede ein Wort von dem.
What's the word? Ecstasy?
Yes. That's what it means. Being out of yourself. Yourself is not such an interesting place to be. I have news for you. Ganz boring. Ich reise da drauf zu. Es ist ganz interessant, zu gehen auf a trip einmal. And like I said, we can go into a lot of details on this when people, we get these chassidische masses, they get geflogen in the Himmel.
Van die lijnstap,
It's
die
out.
lijnsten gaan in de
Characters.
character.
Yes.
Is that what you mean by that?
Sometimes, and there's good and bad ways of doing this. I'm not saying that all of it is good. But yes. I'm just wanted to get to the most basic common definition of all of these things, which is being outside of yourself.
Google has different definitions of ecstasy.
Google's an guy in the radar. Was a bit of Google.
Nah, there's extreme happiness, especially with
Nein, es treffen der originelle. Ich kann nicht, ich kann nicht.
elation,
Okay, ich sag dich, was ich mein. Was Google meint, kann er sich nicht zu geben.
static reveries.
Die kommt schon zu Mystic oder
Zadig. Okay. Jetzt ich kann mich logisch, was Google's Dictionary sagt.
You use the word ecstasy.
Schön. And now, this is, like I said, a certain, call it artistic or beauty contemplation. But the same thing, and the same kind of thing, maybe even in a more powerful way in some sense, or in a less powerful way in a different sense, because when we talk about powerful, we always imagine lights and sirens. That's a big problem that we have. Maar die meint, Alice schon meint, dass wie de ja, man fliegt darauf in den Himmel. So der bei einer Kanal, man fliegt nicht darauf in den Himmel. So seht nach Rosen, man fliegt auf in den Himmel. Ja.
Is dit begaan?
Ja. Aber Busch nicht schleppardes.
Als je hem toch dat gedaan?
Warte, du meinst, dass dann ist echt geflogen?
Maybe they. I mean, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe you could get your body to fly too, but that's not the interesting part right now. And there's no is that, like I said, you can go into a lot of details with this, but the basic definition of specifically the spashtus agashmis, it just means this. It doesn't mean anything besides for this. If you do it for a long time and with a lot of but that's all it means.
The way didn't mean that.
Yeah?
Anyways, try it out.
Mooi ben je 9 of je snapt niet.
Try it
Mooi
more.
ben je 9 of je jongen.
The same thing is you can do or you should do with a thought or with a truth or with an insight. Jeder eine fuhrt auf höhere Berg zu tun solche Sachen. Was ist jeder eine weiß, als man kennt in derselbe Sache, any idea, at least one that is true or that you think is true. And again, most of the time when we learn ideas,
What was also is not true.
thought nicht, ich also, no, a minute. Also irgendwas. Aber let's try to describe it and how it's different. We tend to think that thinking is something that the best kind of thinking, at least, is the kind where you stand at one place and there's information coming in or out of you, or you're judging it, is it richtig information, and so on. And that is maybe one kind of thinking, or maybe one kind of learning, but it's not thought. And thought means, and the best way to do this is to think about things that you already know, because otherwise, when you think of learning new things, then you have to be getting something from somewhere, right? Otherwise, you don't really want new things to come to you in a different way, most of the time, unless you're looking for prophecy. But normale Menschen, du willst das, wenn du lernst etwas, so ich lerne, du sagst der Rambam so, I get, right? That's the wachtige Weg von Lernen. Es ist aber noch eine Achune, so der Shabbos der Weg von Lernen. And what does that mean? That if you go and listen to the Lubavitcher instructions, just ring my... If you take any idea that you learn during the week, and I said before that it's better if you think it's true, because to sagen, as einer hat gesagt, that's not an idea. An idea is something that somehow makes the world make more sense to you. That's what ideas are. Or makes yourself make more sense to you, or makes something more intelligible to you. And if you take any such idea, and you watch it for 5 minutes, in the same way that you could watch the waves for 5 minutes, you watch the idea. Go in the mikveh, come in the shower, and you sit down, and you think about that. Not learn it, think about it, or try to watch it, or try to describe it from the inside, right? Not from the outside. Now you'll notice that sometimes you could be there.
Be there?
Yeah, in the same way that you go and be that mountain that you're watching, and suddenly it's the mountain being very far is not relevant. What is relevant is you're having the mountain in you, or you being in the mountain, however you want to say it. The same exact thing, and maybe more than that, happens with thoughts. But you have to do the basic practice, which is thinking about things that you already know.
And this be for at least 5 minutes?
No, I'm just giving you numbers so you can have what to grasp on. It doesn't even have to be 1 second. But it can also be 4 shoes. The point is that it has to be is a bad word. The point is that it's a kind of watching more than a kind of what we usually call thinking, which is really a kind of judging. And sometimes you hear a new idea and it's enjoyable, you like it, it macht sense, and you remind yourself of it tomorrow. Just take that and do it. Das heißt, das one is lefnei tefillah, was steht in der Shulchan Aruch, and alle chassidische spurim. That's what it means. And then, this is what really means, what means really knowing something or really grasping something. Because then it stops being, I heard that there's a thought, it becomes just the thing that the thought is describing, right? That's why I say the truth and not the thought. The understanding, right? A thought are just words that are trying to communicate some understanding, right? But what is the understanding? The opening up of the world, that it opens up to you in an intelligible way. Or the making senseness of things, that suddenly things make sense. That is a beautiful place. Just like watching the mountain is not about knowing how tall it is, or that there is such a mountain in that place. It's the actual beauty of the mountain. In the same way, that's why I don't say the beauty, the actual intelligibleness, the making senseness of the thought. And making senseness is something sort of like there. And if you do that, you'll be even more lost. We call it lost in thought. You'll be even more lost, or even more far from yourself than how far you are when you become part of the mountain. But anyways, just do it. And it works the more familiar the thought is to you, the better it works. Sure. Atkan. And that's called ecstasy. Those are sort of like emotional and intellectual ecstasies.
I think you could tell a little bit more about this intellectual ecstasy.
Was ook maar.
I think you could say more. I don't know. Ich kann so sagen, you say everything no, then we'll know what we're talking about. Don't versteht, kann man sagen, ich verstehe nicht. Nein. That's the problem. I'm afraid of saying something because then I'm thinking about it. I know 2 + 2 is maybe not true, but let's say I know there's a thought. Me jetzt going to school, 2 + 2 is 4. So I'm thinking, wow, interesting. That's why.
How's that interesting? So much
Nächste
so
Geil ist, wir verschieden jeden Tag. Weißt du, was mir das ist? Ich kann da auch schon.
How do I see this and like
sit back and see the pictures.
this is not bizarre. Wenn
So look.
Wenn das für any Wort, the Wort hat to see sie dann different, noch ein Tracht für a minute. Stops being that same word. Any word that tracht for a minute, whatever it is, stops on the word. It's happening
Ja,
to feel anders.
Menschen trying this.
Selber dir, das wir gemerkt.
possibly.
Menschen tries meditation called the blue light. So you get from the blue light, you meditate and slowly start seeing blue. It can take a week sometimes. Everything is blue, everything intense blue. And that's the spitz meditation. Once you get that, that's the
They zie gewoon
ecstasy.
dit bekend. Maar in deze...
They sit and
Imagine.
don't move the body for a week.
And think about what?
They eat and they sit. They focus on the breath or whatever they focus on. And then suddenly everything becomes blue. That blueness is other gunas.
Doesn't sound correct to me.
Good man lacks.
Ich habe gesagt, dass er nicht stimmt. Ich habe gesagt, das sound nicht correct to me. Because it's...
The blue light, meditation.
Ich halte, dass the light is purple. Weißt du, dass es blue ist und dann ist es drache.
What's the scientific stuff behind it? Because it's blue. So explanation?
The cup.
Think about a basic thing. 2 and 2 is 4 is not really a thought. It's just a fact. It doesn't work for facts in that way. But that's the way you say it. But I could tell you what 2 and 2 and 4 means, or at least one of the things it means. And it's actually a fascinating thing to think about, or a fascinating place to travel to. But the place, my little daughter has like the pre-math fancy Common Core, whatever nonsense way of teaching math. And what they tried to do is to give children the concept of number, concept of shape, concept of number, like without giving you math words for it. Okay, now I don't think any of the preschool kids are getting anything out of this, but I think that if you read that book, you will be in ecstasy. I'm serious. Why? Because it's very babyish, but it's also wondering or touching the most like fundamental or simple, interesting things about the universe that math is basically about understanding. Number theory is a little hard for me to talk about. But if you take what some people think is the base of math, category theory, right? And they have these exercises, okay? There was a page in Shira's book. It went like this. I gave you this exercise once already, right? Here's 3 objects, 2 more, 6 objects. Okay, yeah. Now, can you put them into 2 different boxes? Nimm diese Sachen, like sagen 2 andere boxes, not 2 boxes. And it has to make sense.
Besides, makes sense.
Justify why it should be split into these 2 boxes. Nicht stamm, like it, wenn sie füllt sich like man es daran.
You need to say wire with wire, book with book, stuff like that.
Okay, no, did it?
The emotional. Now you'll think about this and you'll see that amazingly, let's say you choose a certain thing, okay? There's at least 6 different ways to put these 6 things in the boxes, not 6, 3. Anyways, it's common it works. But if you think, for example, if you did one way, which is to separate things by what they're made out of, okay? These 2 things are made out of paper. The rest of the things are made out of plastic. Actually, these 3 things are made out of paper. The rest of the other 3 are made out of plastic. Okay? Now you learn something, not a fact about how many things Yitzchok arranged on the table. You learned something that the pre-Socratics were wondering about. Right? And they walked around shikir from realizing this, right? That you could organize almost everything by what it's made out of. Did you realize that there's such a thing being made out of? Was nicht gewiss, bis der Minute, das kam nicht gehört davon. My daughter definitely didn't hear of it, right? Ich lebe in einer Welt, ich sehe ganz Sachen, Titzig, and notice that they're all made out of things, and somehow a lot of different things can be made out of the same thing, and they're somehow still different things, but they're made out of the same thing, or of similar things, or of similar categories of things. Yeah. But being made out of, you say the word element, you already stop thinking. Ich weiß, was meint der Element. Ich weiß, was being made out of meint.
Sag das mal, Chapton.
This is Machaptum.
Yeah,
It's a very. I don't even know how to explain being made out of by reference to something more basic. But there's something, and I can see it from categorizing my world into things that are made out of different things.
The same is true if you do it just separated by size.
For sure.
It's also
Things have
size.
magnitude. Things have. That was another
Yes.
invention. Now we could organize the whole world by size suddenly, right? And by other ways, there's by function, by not that many ways. Maybe you'll wonder about how many ways you could organize the world. You end up only by 10 according to Aristotle, 12 according to Kant. There's not that many. But at the point, this is a fascinating thing. And now you could just stare at anything.
Das ist so wichtig,
Ich kann sagen, das ist wichtig. Ich habe gefragt, gewollt wasen, how this is something. This actually makes, like I said, until you realize this, the world makes no sense. And after that, suddenly there's but there's a making senseness. One of the basic drives, what this one intellect is about we're searching, we're in love, we're in pursuit of a making senseness of the world. Not only philosophers are after this, everyone is after this, but philosophers are the ones that take this as their primary objective. Right? So macht sense. As the mulgade experience, the guys that are in if you're like a little bit OCD or anything like me, then you go walk into a bookshelf and you see there's all kind of books, Sadirim, Chamushim, Rambams, science books. You feel bad, and you sit down for 2 days, you put everything into the right shelf, and suddenly you feel better, right?
Yeah.
Mulgade experience.
It's all the others.
Other than host, whatever it is. Let's make the sense. Wait, the world didn't make sense. The world. It's not understandable. I can't do nothing with a pile of books. Halacha books and Spurim books and Mases. And now I can do something with it, right?
What can you do with it?
Understand it. Do nothing. Ich kann es verstehen.
Understand why
It
you
makes
thought it that way.
sense. The world fundamentally, when we wake up in the morning, is closed for us. It's not making sense. And suddenly, sometimes it makes sense. And if you'll think about what this making sense actually consists of, then we can go back to what we said about the Golden Gate Bridge. It sort of consists of you becoming somehow that organization. Okay, this is philosophia, but there's the same kind of experience. This was just to give you an example of a kind of thought that could make you, scream eureka, right? Like, make you very. Right? Eureka moment, remember? He realized that you could figure out how much water there's in a bathtub, whatever. There was not because jetzt kann ich solve the problem of how much the crown weighs or whatever. I realized something I realized something and it's out of myself. Rausgegangen von der Keilen.
But the moment that it's geschrieben, whatever, the moment is.
Like I said, I actually think it works better with familiar things, because with unfamiliar things we tend to judge. And familiar things we could actually allow ourselves to look at them and to realize them. In some sense, you always say you want to look at new things, but what we call new things is not really this. It's like, okay, I'm making things too complicated. Think about the fact that everything has a cause. Do you realize that changes everything?
No, but let's go to if we know it already, to get that moment. You're saying that if you know it, that it's use something familiar.
Mm-hmm. I pretend to know this already. I actually don't. So the thing with familiarity is that it's actually complicated. Or at least when I say it's complicated, I mean I don't have an easy way to say it. I actually think that familiarity is usually fake. Familiarity, when something feels familiar, it means that you're not thinking it. Right?
Yeah.
And like you give it a name, and now you're thinking about the name and not about the thing. Right? Sure. Like when I say, look, the world has like a quality of being made out of. And then you say elements. Yeah, of course, the people that discovered the elements, this is what they discovered. It's actually a fascinating discovery. I mean, all of modern science is based on that discovery. And at some point, we didn't know it. From this history of science. But even after we sort of know it, we don't know it. Right? Because we're not impressed by it. Like, of course, there's elements. Well, that's just a word, elements.
It's not a word. It's a physical composite.
Ja, but wenn die tracht wegen der Vater, tracht nicht wegen the being made out of, right? Being made out of is actually, it's actually, by the way, and it actually doesn't make sense. That's why if we learn about matter and if we try to actually make sense of this philosophical, we realize there's a ton of puzzles here. It doesn't actually make sense. Ich habe nicht gesolved jetzt alles. I just noticed something, that's all. And at least in some sense, that is outer body experience, that noticing. Whenever you notice it, if you notice the first time or the second time.
Ich frage if I'm thinking about moments. I think this is such a thing that if somebody tells you, what's the first time you realize that all human faces, like the stupid stuff, whatever it is, that gets all human faces are either you look at a face, you see that this, every person either looks like an eagle, like a dog, like an ape. But if there's like 4 or 5 faces, that all categories go into that. And when you see that, when you think about it, so you'll go around, every time you think about it, everything's going to change for you. You look around. Sometimes it's a zen, it can actually be, but it's a discover. I think it's like a new discover. It's that thought, but it's familiar the thought, but I'm applying it. I'm discovering it again. I don't know. Is that what you mean? I don't know. I'm trying to.
I think that. So my experience, for example, is that, like I said, it seems to be counterintuitive, but I don't think that novelty, in the sense that we usually think about it, is even interesting. But I'm saying things. I'm going too fast now. Still, it's a warning. For example, most people have this concept called spoilers. If you know the end of the movie, it's not exciting. To me, that makes no sense. It's a lot more exciting when you know the end. So the Ravak. Ich sage nicht, ich kann Eide nehmen bis hier, ich weiß nicht, ich sage essen. So da ist, jetzt kicken am Movie, und ich sage dir, Eide nehmen, als an mir, it doesn't make any sense. Wenn ich weiß the end, ich enjoy es, ich sage besser, weil ich hab was geht vor, und nicht mich zu mischen, was bist du?
The idea is not to mish.
What kind of weird idea is that?
Come on.
Nein, that's not true. The idea is to have a certain tension. No, the idea is to realize, I'm not denying that every story, like,
a lot of people read books like that. They go first in the back.
I'm not, no. That's also, ich
Kick this in, right?
Ich maske mit Jens auch. That's, no, ich bin nicht maske mit das auch nicht. Skipping to the back is also, they're curious to find out what happened, so you know what happened. Nobody reads books to find out what happened. I don't know why you would ever read a book to find out what happened. If you want to find out what happened, you can go ChatGPT, summarize this movie for me, I'll give you the what happened. Yeah, and whenever you do that,
so you just contradict
Heros, whenever you do that, you realize that's beklanisch interessant. Whatever ChatGPT does to summarize things, it's not worth anything. So nicht fun. Ich weiß nicht, actually, if you need to know something, sagen it's stark. But it's not and fun at all. Why not? Because it's like if I'm a mountain hiker. Ich will umkommen to the top of Mount Everest. You know that I have a picture for you of how it looks on the end. Nicht interessant. Ich will dich kriechen der Berg. Ich will kriechen von hinten bis oben. That's what I want to do, right? I want to go through the ganze Masse.
Yeah, exactly.
And derselbe Sache, als wenn ich will lernen am Movie, ich will git verstehen the kasha, you know, the how's it called in the story arc, right? The plot, the challenge, and I want to see how it gets resolved. I want to go through that whole thing. Not because I want to know what happens in the end. That's such a silly way of understanding what art is for, what stories are for. Stories are not for telling you what happened in the end. Jeder eine weiß, was geschehen zum Sof, und dann raus von Mitzrayim. That's not interesting.
Well, I got to the back, to the end.
The experience is experience. What it means even to like have a story is to go to have this thing. Ich habe doch gegangen die ganze Sache. Aber ich will ja schicken, die will nicht schicken. Will ja schicken, nicht. Is he going to send? I know, of course, that he's going to send in the end. It's not a question of information. It's a question of a certain understanding, of a certain. You can say the word experience if you like that. I hate that word because it's a cop-out word when you can't explain things. Say it's an experience, but it's a certain understanding or a certain action. It's analogy. The best analogy I have is to climbing the mountain. Which would be very dumb to say, you know, Lewis and Clark had their whole expedition, and finally they found out how to get to the Pacific Ocean. And now, this is a interessant, right? Now it's the whole thing, because we have a map, we know where the Pacific Ocean is. It doesn't make any sense, this. It's such a funny way of thinking about anything. And if you know the end, now you know what you're doing, now you know what the story is, so now you could actually understand the whole thing. Right? You want to know the whole thing at once. You want to somehow, be part of the whole story, right? Not of this shtickle of the story.
Actually, the clock is interessant. Because one of the things people don't realize, they had a job, they knew where they're going, somehow it was amazing because
Well, they got stuck in the mountains and
they got stuck. China was a much more terrible story. People got stuck by Indians were way worse, and they got killed. They got sick. They had a destination. What's not fascinating?
Ausgetrotten der Weg.
The lechlich one, no?
Some good visit.
Any case, what I'm saying is, so therefore, this is just an example of why I don't understand why people talk about novelty, learning something for the first time. To me, the second time is always better. Also wie man jetzt so die Gravaien sagen, als verstehen nicht, wie man macht der zweite Seite in Chitzlutz. Was schnell rausgegangen mit rein, der zweite Seite ist echt mehr Geschmack.
I totally disagree with you.
Die disagrees, aber ich sogar Fakt.
Fact. Not fact.
I already know what's going to happen. Nah, I already know from last year also, but now ich denke von der Hand. Ich sag mehr frisch. Ich sag besser. Der Schnurig sagt, dass ich meine, Schnurig sagt, ja, Schnurig sagt, auf einen Davenen, and you know, the difference is that vieles Shibule Prokim, darf man sich mit Sadas an der Davenen, right? We have Lishmanesser, Neuch Lishmanesser. When is the best Lishmanesser, the erste oder der zweite? When it's the real one is the second one, right? Sicher. Ich rede den, aber the real one is the second one. Der Ried Kudish sagt, der erste ist binnen, der zweite ist Chachma, das sag ich. Jeder ist Meidach, ich meine, it's not gesagt, ich tippe, sonst Sadas an, there's somehow we got into this thing that we do twice. But ja, in der Luche ist nach Sadas an, fahren wir da, und darfst du wissen, was der Geist da ist, right? Da Luche. Und man weiß nicht, if you don't know the end of the Machze, you know, like, man, Luche, da wissen die ganze Sache, fahr dem. If you want to understand the Masechta with Megat in the Yeshiva the next man, the best idea is to learn the whole Masechta with Beinas Mana. Yedana weiß this. Not looking for surprises. Like, who? We're looking for something surprising, but in a whole different way. And the kind of surprising where knowing it in advance makes it better or not worse. And I think one of the reasons is because when you don't know the end, you're worried about this information. We're missing a stick of neigerig. Man kann sehen, weil es neigerig zu wissen, was es in the end. Das will du verstehen. It's a whole different kind of thing. And especially, another reason why old things are better is because we don't actually understand fully the new things. Whenever you hear a new shir, then every time you're struggling to get into it, well, half of the time you're not having pleasure. You're struggling, right? You only know it partially. Na Geschmack, ich will doch so sagen Geschmack. Geschmack ist, wenn ich weiß die ganze Sache, and now I could be there. Whenever I say see the second time, it's much better the second time always than the first time.
Okay, that's inside that.
Ja, aber Schiele verstehe ich, wie du sagst, aber nicht mit kein Seite.
Nicht mit gar?
Seite recht. It's different.
I don't say book, but a book. You can find a book after reading.
That's because they're bad books. If you'll read a good book, you'll be able to.
Well, there's good. Can't be a good story twice.
Those are the bad books. Da darfst noch kleine gute books. Schlechte
Can we
movies.
read a line twice?
A line, yes.
So the book has to be written as good as that line.
Nah, deep in a book, yeah.
Nah, good
Deep in a
line.
book, yeah.
A good one, yes. It wasn't internalizing.
Neem retten nog, no?
Ich kann fiction books.
Most of the books we read are extremely the opposite of information dense, right? They say everything 4 times and they pad it with a lot of words, so you shouldn't even read it once. But anything that's worth reading once is worth reading 100 times. The nerve from wissen, was steht, stops you from understanding.
Ja, ich würde.
Ich habe gesehen, weiß der bald viele, wenn greift sich zieht für die Schuhe und singt mit der ganze Nigen mit alles. So wenn das you, damals, oder wenn da anfangen mit actually. Ever wonder? Ich weiß nicht mehr mal, you know, I was watching someone, was Licht, so die ganze Licht, so gedenken, dann ist der ganze Geschmack. No, so, wenn es fake, wenn es echt. Der Territz ist, ich rede, wie es darf sein, das weiß ich. Der Territz ist, als die ganze Sache, man darf machen nach uns, hallo, ich nur, man darf machen nach uns, das nicht kann, wenn der eine sagt, ich habe so umgereiten, sich ziehen, ich nur, ich habe sich ziehen gereiten, it has to not be new for him when he comes to the Shuna. You think that the Shuna is Geschmack, was ist nahe, nein. Tun ist nahe, wem es ist nahe, ist nicht, man ist over auf der Halluche. When he has to prepare, so therefore, when daven fuhr, beschaß Maße, you shouldn't be worried, kann ich dann ist, lehne ich Tanai, ist, kann man Pute von den anderen Tagen, dann kann ich Juti.
Euch ist mein Esra.
sure. I think that I used to say that, das kommt es da an, als mit steht, es ist emes, du nicht da, wenn man Tages, emes, steht nicht genug, also wenn man Tages, well, if it's a heilige Tage, also wir husten, dann you put beklar. Ob es dann mal wochenige Tage, was da doch, mit der Tage tun, ein haltes da, Mechiev li yashav da, das steht nicht mehr. Das ist Mechiev. Also bist du geschmiert für das, nimm noch Appell, ich weiß, was ist Mechiev. Ja, so frag dich Ashala, Elechid, was ist dann größte Tage in der Früh? Darf davenen. Tu nicht davenen, lass da Tage. So mit tu nur davenen, wenn man nicht kann Tage, man darf davenen. Von dem darf man zweimal. Das ist das von euch, das ist das von euch, ich meine es. Schon heute gewesen? Jetzt darf. And it's true in everything. And usually, for example, if you do a sheet from a shoe, whatever it is, or the lens that is pushed through, ganze Woche gelernt etwas, a lot of things were complicated, so wenig ganzen klar. But usually there's like one thing that you actually is open for you. It actually makes sense. And it actually opens a lot of other things too. But this is actually, es wird pushed bei dich, right? Es ist nicht kein Chiddisch, es pusht. Chiddisch meint, es darf sich mitschneiden. Wow, ja, so ist ja nicht. Das stimmt das mit das stimmt das mit Jens. Er sagt, das ist pusht. Verkehrt, das ist mal bei allen anderen Sachen, right? And if you think about that thing, you see that's very geschmack. And you'll see that you lose yourself in it. For those 5 minutes, then you'll come back and say, wow, es noch du a Welt. Ja, ganz interessant. This is all archuvas of instructions. It wasn't explaining the espashas agashmis. It was just instructions for how there could be espashas agashmis from thoughts. And I said that in order to get to that, you have to be put there from the daga to understand, which is a whole different level. It's judging. It's not understanding, or it's learning. Also, no.
I'm stuck here. Hand toch geht aan van die cliffs of zo. Altijd de bewijn. Dat het weer is ook zeggen de zitten van de thuis. En wat is dit zitten van thuis zitten? Dat is het dan dat ik denk dat zitten van thuis zitten. En de gewijze maar kan zoveel. Dat het zit. De gewijze maar gewoon eigenlijk de eerste wel gewoon dat ze lief en dan moet je de cliffs dat maakt sens. Dat zit wel deze avond. En de gewijze gered me gaan dat is kom ik even naar Silvertal. Kijk maar kijk daar aan gezien wat de zitten van thuis zitten is. Then it's going to make sense to me. Oh, so then, so I can imagine, but ich weiß actually, ich darf das wissen, I'm missing this piece. Ich denke nicht jetzt,
No.
ungezeugen, ich gehe sein, das kommt ich gehe sein.
Now you're going to relieve your pain. You're going to relieve your pain. That's the first problem. You haven't had pain, that's vergessen. So first you relieve your pain.
Nein, ich der Mann, ich denke, wie Geschmack sie gewähnt, wenn ich wow.
Maybe it's not anymore geschmack because it doesn't actually make sense. That's another question. You have to be the...
It's interesting. It has a sense. It's not a side to the world. It's not a side to the
Okay, so yes. But yeah, when you're busy relieving the pain of not knowing, that's not geschmack. I mean, that's like taking medicine.
So that's like when I
Have
don't
to
know how to
eat.
daven for the, I don't know
Yeah.
what's willing now.
And you leave, Baruch Hashem, we passed. Darfst du nach zweit, wenn man darf nicht stehen, Baruch Hashem. And of course it's very interesting. And by the way, if you want to do tzarifim, you have to actually do it. I learned the class from my Rebbe, that's Chumoshe. Wenn ich heute zu sagen Gematris, man darf rechnen Gematris. Because it's not fun. Die Wort Gematri, jene Wort. Was wisst ihr von mich? Die ist, jedes 10, and then you live it, right? Then you're in there. The same thing with tzarifim. Tzarifim is like a very simple thing. You have to do it.
Als het stimmt, dan zijn alles.
If it stimmt nicht, then you'll realize that it stimmt nicht, you're like stuck, ups, trying to afford a cliff. Try somewhere else, macht sie like na koil, ich weiß nicht. It's at least fun. People don't realize that people read Spuren and have a lot of Gematria. They say it's not fun. Of course, if you don't do it, nothing is fun if you don't do it. It's like reading a math book with all the exercises without doing them. It's useless. Yeah, and if you do it, then it's fun. Look, jeder einer hat fun andere Sachen. Nicht jeder einer hat lieb jede Sache. But just the basic idea of that we're so used to just knowing things and not doing them. Doing thoughts, right? Thinking thoughts. Of course, Amir Lefi said, if you want to have Kodesh, maybe it says in Sefer Yetzirah, you start doing tzarifim, not knowing. Ich weiß auch, dann kann man alle zusammen mit alles. But if you actually do it, by the way, it actually works usually. It actually drives you crazy, or takes you out of here. It's just a way. Everything are ways. Did you ever realize, this is like the elements thing, did you ever notice, the erste step von ich HaKodesh is rausgehen von sich. Nach dem Treffen reden weiter. What according to the erste step, right? Did you ever realize that all words are made out of the same few letters? By the way, this is as interesting as my story, even more interesting in some sense than my story with the things. And then we started going backwards. Okay, so let's just take the letters and see how many words we could make out of it. And did you notice that if we take the same word and we arrange the letters differently, it has a totally different meaning? Now, does this actually explain the universe or not? This is noch a schale, but it's at least fascinating.
Das ist auch fliegen, yes. Ist ein Wort.
Aber Yitzchok, als du kennst das Heimdenken, was haben wir da getan? Lass uns zusammenstellen. Man gerät in für eine Ecstasy, man gerät in für...
Nein.
Wie bringt man es daheim zu? Du sagst, man redet wegen normale Mathe. Ja, es ist ein bisschen peirig. Lass uns strach.
I'm just giving instructions today. I didn't say any titles. The erste instruction is nemen ablim and just steeren auf es for 10 minutes.
Instructions of what's the manual for it? In order to the instructions, could I just scan
the far is a machshava zura.
No, it's not key instruction. Okay. You want to end up with a piece of furniture, right?
Yeah, so the instruction is what's the purpose of it? What's the purpose for the instructions? Is that
yeah, the purpose is, but the purpose is part of the instruction. Just to
be not ready for next week instruction.
No, the purpose is part. Listen, a purpose is part of an instruction.
Stay.
So when we gaan hem zijn man, lטייל באוil מסליot. Sorry. Herausgehen von sich. This is the instruction.
And bis wenn darf man es stehen? In was gar geschehen noten?
Wir können doch damit zurückkommen. Also Zeit kommt das schon.
No problem. We'll try to
When geschehen nach. There's just instruction for that. That's so you should understand my shit from last week. But that's but it's also good for Natsma. What I mean, sometimes if you're whatever, it's useful for so many things. Yeah. It's very useful. But the kavuna is there. And the zwei Wegen. The erste Weg is see kicken auf Ablim, oder zu gehen zu der Prospect Park, kicken auf der Wasser, oder neben der Wasser dort by the bridge of Bay Parkway. Just do it, you'll see. It's fascinating. And the andere Eize ist tracht nach Sachen, man weiß schon. And nicht, was man weiß gibt, not that you don't worry about at all. Think about something we're so used to learning with worries, with tages, let's take the simplest thing that you already know is true, that you're not worried about, that it actually feels good to think about, because it helps you understand other things, because it's clear. And just think about it. This is the mitzvah Talmud Torah, this is the mitzvah from Achuna Letfila, from everything.
This is the mitzvah Talmud Torah?
Wie gießt bei Yom V'Layl, was meint das? Sagen die Chachomem, lernen neue Sachen, das ist nur in der Woche tun wir lernen neue Sachen. Weißt du, du musst lernen keine neue Sachen, ja? Hallo, auf der Mishnah.
It's actually funny, Yeshiva guys have to learn the flesh my good family.
Du nicht lernen neue Sachen, Shabbos. Es ist ein Zar, ohne Shabbos. Shabbos darf man lernen neue Sachen, was man weiß schon. Whatever it is, a thing that is already extremely simple and understand. So schon macht das nicht Sense.
Aber eine Sache hast du gesagt, vorige Woche, the knowledge is in the Rosens. Kommt nicht für mir.
If you'll do this, you'll see how it's in the Rosen. And then you could come back to figure out what the theory of it is. This whole sheet is just that you could see it that way. That shouldn't be a crazy idea, was Yitzchok sagt, das steht in Kabbalah vor.
So wie ist es in der Rosen? Wie ist es? In einem Platz? Das ist
jetzt legst du philosophische Kasches.
Also vorige Woche das?
Ich habe gesagt, ich will keine Schritte wegen Jens an. Ich kann nur sagen Instructions, wie also, ich ziehe die Sort Sache, was nimmt dich heraus von, was bringt dich zu einem Platz, was heißt trachten. Oder was nimmt dich heraus von dich and makes you one with the thought, or one with the mountain that you're watching. And then, after you do that, if you're very curious, if you have that kind of inclination, then you can start to think what this actually means, and we could do metaphysics. But this is not metaphysics sheet.
Isn't this a way of meditation to a certain degree? Would you just describe it?
Was heißt noch die Wort, kannst du mal sagen?
Langsam ist es meditation.
And is it making you do it or making you not do it?
Makes me to understand it a little better.
How does it make you understand better by giving it a name? Na, research nicht. Research ist das Researchen doch das Team. Also die Gemura, was ich mit Islam to her, I was middle of saying, am sagt Shema Yisrael zweimal a Tag, the thing that you know, the most simple thing, kennst nicht kashim sufik, nicht problems, ob du problems, noch a noise, but in the most simple sense. Take us 30 seconds in the morning, aber the minimum is, and the ikir is Sachen, was man weiß schon. Take 30 seconds in the morning and 30 seconds at night. That's what it means to be a Yid. And it's also a lot of fun. Because otherwise you forget. And then you go around only bumping it. You only start to think when you have a new problem. Why would you hurt yourself by only thinking when you have something you don't understand, when it hurts to think? Then people go around saying, oh, it's hard to think, it hurts. Of course it hurts. Anything that you don't understand, that's what it hurts. But du kennst dich schon so viel Sachen, ja? Du weißt schon so viel Sachen. To some level. Why don't you sometimes think about the things that you already enjoy? Stam richtig ist das, ins Leben eine ganze neue Sachen.
Ich meine, dann zahlt man, dass der Blick nicht kann teilen. Ich weiß es schon.
That's fine. Es bringt doch nicht kann teilen, zu kicken dreimal auf der, zu sagen, jeden Tag geht zurück, zu kicken noch mal auf der Sinn. Ich kann teilen, ich kann es da bringen, teilen. Teilen ist the definition of teilen is something that you don't do for itself, you only do for something else. So what's the something else this? Okay, this is noch Hashir. Of course. Of course.
Was ist der Elis von David und Kaddish oder Mama?
So Mama geht hechern gar rein. Tat, actually.
They say, I don't know.
No, dat gaat hechern gar rein, stein is der Wiss.
Ja, ich weiß, ich mag mich da gewähnt, aber for the chance that it is, take it.
What do you want from me?
I don't know.
What's right doing in Kayit, Stam? This is what all the people that are having fun are doing. They're thinking about things they already know.
They do?
Yeah. These days, to do zwei sort chachumim, two happy ones and sad ones. The sad ones are the ones that only think about things they don't know, and the happy ones are the ones that also think about things they know. That's also a problem. But
they detail the things that you know.
no, it's just a detail in practice, 100%. 100%. No, you got hung up on it because everyone keeps on asking me about it, so I'm giving you, this is all instructions. It's instructions for how to find out that thinking is something that happens to you, or it's a way of getting out of yourself. That's all it is. It's not inherently the point that I'm trying to make. No, I'm asking. It's just a very important hurdle to overcome because of the way we think about thinking usually, which is the opposite. But when you'll do this, then you should do it. It's not complicated. It's the most simple thing. It's easier. This is easier than what it is busy yet. I'm making your life easier. Not only is it easier, it's also refreshing. It's like any trip in some sense. Because it's kind of quite hard to keep on schlepping this all the time.
Schlepping what?
The same place, being in the same place. Samuel gesehen, stocken an der Arbeit, der ganze Tag, darfst du jetzt gehen? Ist der Weg gehen? Ja, stell dich vor, bist stocken Joli den ganzen Tag. Doch ein größere Jail, nein? Nach Eget, am Weg gehen, nein? And you'll see, if you do that, you have a lot more energy. Or I don't know, at least you'll get rested sometimes. I mean, ein Mensch darf sich rest, weil ich kann doch nicht die ganze Zeit dieselbe Sache, ja? And being you is the most tiring thing.
Du.
Trecht daran. A ganze Tag bin ich Joli. Jetzt geht es mal absantisch. These are just basic ways of doing it. If it still doesn't work, you get the drugs, but go ahead and help them push the Sache. Yes, and if you think like this, then all these weird metaphysics of the knowledge being some place that you go to, or some kind of unification of the knower and the known, all of them start to be obviously trying to explain this. Ken sich Dinge, after is nicht the richtige explanation. But before you ever thought, and you don't even, there's nothing to need an explanation. Ich kann reden wegen dem, ich kann reden, du shittas a Rambam, shittas a Plato, shittas this meint knowledge, all these Teures. But it's not very interesting if you never have the question, right? Or if the question you have is based on a kind of thinking that they don't even consider thinking really. You have other questions, epistemological questions, but not this kind of questions.
So this is explain how this is trachten.
So the main Sache was...
Trachten is a Platz.
Es ist the main Sache, was drauf Friedig am getracht, wenn wir gesagt trachten, yes.
Vielleicht von derselbe Sache nochmal.
Nicht nochmal, ein langer Mund.
Aber Hand, im Morgen nochmal.
Das wird... Maar dat is wegen dem Morgen oder der
Wegen dem Morgen der Hand, wegen dem haben wir uns geredet, die letzten 20 Minuten, das ist nein, das ist alt, das ist wie sagt das, kol yabanech chadushim, whatever. That was why, because of this question, we get into that. Yes, contemplating it, it's called usually, right?
Maybe we should do a
trip,
exercise
trip.
together.
Kannst du nicht zusammen?
I thought we did a few such exercises now, but
Ich habe getan 2,5 von sein, von this sheet.
Wenn er gesagt wegen der Shiras book dort, ja, it didn't like...
But the thing is,
it wasn't like a...
yes, no, the thing is that it's that you
we
have
had
to...
it for slight moments.
Yes, the thing is that you have to do a lot of research on yourself to actually find out how things make sense to you. Because we're very used to not ever doing that. Right? Take something like basic that you supposedly know. No, sag mal, ich muss von einer Sache. Das ist basic. Jede advised.
A square, a triangle.
Jede weiß aber schon, was passiert ist. Jede weiß im ersten Spiel fix und Fleisch. Mit dem Schuss und Fleisch.
Okay, but those are not basic things.
Okay.
Anymore.
Jede weiß, also sein oder
Okay. Okay.
Als schlechter
Get anything there.
The Eigenschaft von einer Arbeit schon sein.
I'm just looking for something that I know how to get from one place to the other. Ja, alle Jeden weißen, als
Nicht riesig, like it. Ich weiß nicht, was mean nach.
those are just things that happened in history. Yes, but take something that you're very used to knowing and also sometimes arguing about if it's true. Like, Eis of Soin Yaakov. Ja, alle Jeden, alle Chayder eigentlich weißen, als Goyim, oder at least plechte Goyim, haben wir fahnd Jeden. It's not a pleasurable thought, so it's not going to work so well. That could make you scared if you want.
That's right.
Do you think this is true?
With the eyes of Yaakov?
Yeah. Or to the extent that it's true, do you think that it's true? There is such a thing? Anti-Semitism, I stuff English?
It looks like it. It's hard to think with the eyes of Yaakov.
Okay, again, whatever it means.
So much books are written on
There's
this.
some people, you just think of people that...
You don't. There's no genetic. Like you don't grow. You don't.
It's genetic. It is genetic.
You don't have muscle memory of
Sag it,
anti-Semitism.
so nicht genetic. Aber
It's
sie du als
such a
Azar?
thing, it's part of society conditions. Yeah. Today, as we stand,
Okay, so seine du me in seine Jeden.
Nicht weil sie ein Araber ist. No.
Wait, now you're arguing about it.
Ist auch von der Araber.
Ich will umkommen sie, but
Von der Araber?
no, what I'm trying to get at is we could argue about all these good questions, right? Is weil geboren na goy nach kompressmile? Is es weil and so on. These are all
So
good
many
questions,
books was
right?
written on
Is it
this.
because of the occupation? Okay, good questions. But I don't know what you people believe, okay? But let's say, after whatever it actually means, whatever you really think is the case, Ich ben Ayid. Nobody asked me if I want to be. Just happened like that. By the way, did you ever think about that?
Yeah.
Nicht why.
Mach mich sehr nervös, the fact. I'm not happy with
Exactly.
it. Nicht nervös. It's something that you have, like, there's something, this is just like, there's something called fate, like people have words for this, right? I don't want to try to not say words, right? There's some basic, extremely basic, at least for where we are, something extremely basic about what I am,
Dit is gepikt.
and then doesn't, maybe Efshem can laufen, Efshem nicht, ich weiß nicht. But bis der Wahl,
Jullie heroes.
and think about this, and it should do something to you. I don't know what, but not something. I think it makes me. You really want to know what?
Auf een level kan ze doen.
Gaat nog bij de goy, maar gaat nog bij die, right?
Kan ze gaan aan level vader.
Guess what? This didn't start by being a yid. That's the only thing that bothers me. But it started by being born a man and not a cockroach. And
So it's not an issue.
ich habe gesagt, da cockroach. Die ist alle Issues in der
No, gender you could choose that. Or
Okay, gaat zu kann man sagen, aber mir ist gemacht kein
Frau.
Frau. Wer bin ich?
Yes. And basically, so now I'm reevaluating like my whole conception of self, because I went to the school of modernity that taught me that I'm an independent agent that chooses what to do and what to be. I feel in yeshiva, yeah, it's choslen, it's bechira. And I'm not here to argue with bechira, but at least something that makes a very big difference, or many things, or most of the things that make most of the difference, are just the way they are. Who chose it? Ich weiß nicht. Aber so ist es. Sicher nicht mich. Suddenly I lost myself. I don't even know who I am anymore. Like, sorry. And now, after me losing myself, this is literally losing myself, just, right? Ich weiß schon viele, ich kann doch sagen Ashir, und die Mann sagen Ashir ist predicated as auf so viele Sachen, was ich halt. Anyways. And this just destroys all of that. Guess what? We could rebuild it. We could say, I also didn't choose to give the shir. But, and now, besides, and that somehow, there's some other people, was they sort Sache, was ich bin, was ich sicher nicht choose, that much I know, not a get, as far as I know, nicht mich personally, ich bin älter sein, ich weiß nicht. They actually believe, and was like live as a Herzkirch nicht, they actually live and have a plan, that this is like the problem of humanity. This is what's making Mashiach not come. Nicht aber es chagetin. And they're every day sitting there and planning where they're going to buy the missiles and who they're going to talk to and what articles they're going to write and what kind of songs they're going to sing and so on in order to make me disappear. I'm in so many places now. Nobody really thinks like this. Nobody lives in this truth. This is like a really weird and scary place to go to. I don't know if it's a good place to go to, but it's a place. It's a lot stronger than my thoughts of it. Me giving words to it is not making me feel in control of it. I might come back and say, okay, so we're going to buy nuclear weapons. Actually, this is a plan. But ich halt noch for the plan. This is, I didn't say anything I didn't know yet now, but I just took myself out of here very quickly. I'm basically in the same place where Theodore Herzl was watching the Dreyfus trial. Literally the same place. It was happened 150 years ago. There's a guy, I could describe you his situation. You'll see it's just the same, the thought is the same thought.
It's the first time you witness anti-Semitism?
No, but he's
Ich
not
habe
in
nicht
that
verzeiht,
place.
kein Maß. Ich habe nur gedacht, ich hasse das auch, ja?
If
If you think this is all false,
ich
ich rede nicht jetzt von den Shakiras.
kann morgen dort kein
Ich rede nicht diese MS. Actually, die ganze Sache von Fantasie ist 30 Stunden. Ich rede nicht von dem. Du wolltest describe.
Experience them.
Ja. Ach,
The
einmal.
first time he saw the
Something hit him, he was
Jetzt ist schon gehabt.
Ich habe gesehen, das ist erfahren. I'm news reporter.
Yeah, but the point is, du a Mensch, Tzadik, der Maß von Herzl ist selbe Maß, was ich mir jetzt getan. Du a Mensch, was lebt sich.
Then he saw the running in the street.
Yeah, that's the story, but I'm not trying to get at this history story.
The mass is outside.
Whatever is what I'm trying to get at is not the story, wie es ist geschehen zu ihm. What I'm trying to get at is that he did exactly what I just did now. That he is a human being, and ist die ganze Zeit gemeint, dass ist a human being. So decides, he's a journalist, and so wohnt in Wien, and sich hasst mit sein als ein Eidl, und so weiter. And bis der Fall, hat gehabt, als Koidukol ist nicht kein human being, ist Yid. Beide, ich meine. And somehow that means that there's some power in the world that they mention was that they is not a mushal for that. There's something that is here to make sure that he stops existing. Okay, that causes him a lot of thoughts and a lot of maskunas. But there's noch steps. Just saying there's such a place. There's it's not about the thing, it's about the reality, right? It's about the...
It's a dark place.
If I would speak in that place, let's say there's a monster called what is the highest there?
Small.
Whatever, the Samach Mem, and Schon Fabrius Oilam. This is just a mythical way of describing the same thing, right? Schon Fabrius Oilam, wenn der Reibisch gesagt, will machen Jiden, will machen Menschen, hat sich gegengestellt. It's like a being, like a thing. And since then, Reibisch sometimes wins and sometimes he wins. And he's still around. So then, Meraket V'hanayni. And if you go, and you're not allowed to go there because it's dangerous. And if you go there, either you come back with a plan what to do with this, or it's a thing. Wer sagt, du warst schon gegangen und gefragt, du gehst vor Mashiach, wie ist was das? What did they do? He's basically doing this. Sie ist gewinnt dasselbe, sie ist eine zweite Souten, ich weiß nicht, ja. Der Yosef Leleiner gehabt die Souten and like, what is it about? It's just a visionary way of doing the same thing. And Hertel Bible had visions too, but the testery, ich kann auch um visions. Ich kann gelegt sich getracht, das ist noch wegen. We get into the questions, mit recht mit Wörter, oder mit pictures, oder mit... The fact is that this is not things that we made up when we're thinking, not things that happen in our brain. You could very simply see that this is a place to go to. This is a truth that exists somewhere out there, I don't know, that's schon metaphysics, but es ist nicht eine Sache, was hype und endigt sich, es ist nicht der Weg, was sich tragt gewöhnlich, es ist nicht, there's something else. I don't want to do too much imagination, because imagination actually makes you think that it's exciting. It's not exciting. The real reality is a lot more away from yourself than imagination. That's why it was Hashem to actually imagine things. Is gestanden Warte von der Sache, wie ich, wenn ich dies unter. We already said this a few years ago. Because imagination, in some sense, is always still in your mind, and thought is much further from your mind than imagination. Okay, but this, you know this already, or not, but it's not halal. Steht sich so, ja, wenn man harge die Chule, starben nicht alle Antisemiten. And that's something that you notice better when you think without pictures. because it's less inside of you and more you going there. In the same way, you could, you suchst Kiddush, verratig zu Nacht, sei bestimmt bei der Welt in 6 Tag, ich weiß nicht, was meint, ja? Whatever the Nimschel is, but still it's a basic Sache, was du verstehst. Der ist noch gesagt, man kann nicht sagen, als Eides darf man es keiner sehen, ja? Sie macht Eides auf Maße Bereiches. Die was gewähnt hat? Yeah, when you say Kiddush, you should go there, otherwise your eye shake. What does it mean to go there? Kijk op de Welt. Deze is de Welt, wat hij heeft gemaakt in 6 Tagen. Ik heb jetzt gearbeitet für 6 Tagen, also der habe ich gemacht. Die Welt in 6 Tagen. Und ich habe es dir geriet, also wie ich die jetzt. Watch it. Das ist shit, für die Maße Bereich ist.
Ich weiß nicht, später ist das. Can man sagen, als the exercise is, akupun in the exercise, kedain zon verstehen du, the thinking is a place. Is a place not in you. It's not a thing that you do.
It's something that
It's
overpowers
a thing that you. Go to.
The going is too much of an imagery that I don't want to do. It helps you understand, this is good, but it's a feel imagery. Thinking is a way of having truths, which are objects of truths, is the only thing that can be really objects of thought. Exactly, overpower you, or you going again to describe it like up or down is under the shale, but it's not something of me. It's all thought starts when you're sitting in the binocular and watching Mount Everest, and you go there. That's where thought starts. That's what thinking means. Or knowing. Actively thinking. Actively knowing.
So we wrap this up.
Myron Simmons, I get the Simmons, and then I again, I get the...
Is this